going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition, taking a look at the final two Kentucky Derby points qualifying races for 2019. One of them is a big one down in Arkansas. It is the Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn down in Hot Springs. We'll also take a look at the Lexington. That one, probably a quicker look at that, simply because the points are not nearly as valuable. But there are points. I shouldn't say that. The race doesn't have as many points to give out. The points are every bit as valuable because a few of the runners in there are going to be fringe contenders, most notably Another Twist of Fate. So we'll dive into those two races as well. However you listen to this thing, thank you for doing so. You've got a number of different ways, and I would strongly encourage you, if you do watch this or you listen to this preview show, I would suggest you watch this one specifically because you're going to get some replays, you're going to get some formulator. That's usually how I break these things down. The recap edition is great with the video as well, but I think that one can be a little bit better off audio only. This one here, I would strongly encourage you to be watching it, whether it's on YouTube and the Racing Forms channel or on video.drf.com. But if you can't do either of those and you listen to this thing still from an audio standpoint, you have options. You have Spotify, you have SoundCloud, you have Apple Podcasts or iTunes, number of different spots. And then as always, again, YouTube and video.drf.com as well. So let's dive right into it. We're going to go through the Arkansas Derby. To be frank, I think both races are pretty straightforward. I don't think there's a lot of sort of crazy intrigue that goes on with either of them. You know, the Wood Memorial last weekend, it felt like perhaps things could get a little bit crazy. They did get crazy in the race itself, but the result was relatively formful. The same could go for basically the other two races, the Bluegrass as well as the Santa Anita Derby. And I do kind of feel like these two races fall into those categories as well. So let's dive right into it. Let's take a look at the Arkansas Derby from Oaklawn Park. Kick it off with the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. 100 Derby qualifying points go to the winner, and it may seem like it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be one of these main contenders. It very well could be, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a major race because many of these horses need points in order to solidify themselves and make sure that they have enough points to get into the starting gate for the first Saturday in May. So while this is a prep, a means to an end to get to the Kentucky Derby, you got to have the points to even get in there first. So this is still an important race. A number of these main players, they still need to go out there and strut their stuff on Saturday. So take them right through in order, show you some replays, only two of them to be honest. I'm going to show you the split divisions of the Rebel, but we'll go through, take a look at some interesting little formulator facts and go through what I think about each one of these runners. We'll start with the number one, Improbable. I've just from day one, I thought he was the most talented 2-year-old. I think, you know, the Rebel itself, sure, he lost a little bit on the green side. The blinkers go on. You'll see that up over here. To me, that's an important piece because he ran kind of like a horse that needed blinkers. You'll see that there's a decent formulator fact down here. It's a limited sample size for Bob Baffert, but past 5 years, first-time blinkers in a graded stakes race, 3 for 6. The only 3 that were in the money were the winners, but an 886 ROI, and then if you filter that and break it down to just dirt runners, 3 for 4 with a 1330 ROI. So this is clearly a move that Baffert has had success with. This is a horse that has a little bit of versatility, and I think he's going to show it here in this spot on Saturday. Breaking from the inside, I could see him taking up a sort of pocket position because there is other speed in here. Actually, we're going to bounce around a little bit because I think you have to talk about long-range Toddy when you talk about Improbable. So now Improbable breaks from the rail. Long-range Toddy breaks from the far outside from post number 11. Now, I'll admit, going into the Rebel, I said, you know, the horse coming out of the Southwest, if you want to take anyone at a little bit of an interesting price, perhaps it is Long-Range Toddy because he didn't have the cleanest of runs. He was shuffled back, rounding the far turn. I didn't think he was a win contender. I didn't think he was a win candidate, but I thought he might be one that you want to use underneath a horse like Improbable. Well, he ended up getting the job done at odds of 8-1. Nice score if any of you had him. But I think there are some reasons to believe that Improbable will turn the tables this time around. Not just because of the equipment change. Hopefully that sharpens him up and gets him to focus a little bit more. But I'm a big believer in the pairing up of buyer speed figures, the top figure projecting a forward move. And you'll see right here, these two races prior, you had the Smarty Jones, an 87 buyer for long-range Toddy, the Southwest, an 87 buyer. So he paired up career buyer tops, and I thought that generally, this is kind of a rule of thumb that I use handicapping. I think it sort of is a good barometer and a good sort of projection for a new top coming out in the next start. And sure enough, you've got this 95 buyer here in the Rebel. I think that's fast enough to win a race like this, but I wonder if that was the forward move for this horse. Having said that, I don't want to sit here and disparage him. I love the versatility, and the versatility could be very, very important in this race on Saturday. Let's go back to their division of the Rebel. You'll also see Galilean, who is in this race, the Arkansas Derby. He's in the West Point silks between horses right now. We're going to run the tape, and you see Long Range Toddy here in these white silks, sitting a beautiful trip in behind horses. Meanwhile, on the outside with the yellow cap with the red body, that's Improbable. He's going to go off, make the front here. Long Range Toddy's just waiting for a seam to open up. He's eventually going to angle out here to the outside, and this is when Improbable gets a little bit goofy. You're going to see his head. He's cocked to the grandstand a little bit. It's almost like he's just not... It's just he doesn't have his mind on business at this point. Meanwhile, Long Range Toddy is full of steam right now, and he goes and rolls and just gets the job done in time. You see Galilean down in those West Point silks. He tries, but he's no match for the top two. Unfortunately, there's a part of me that does believe that that's simply the case here, where the top two runners coming out of this division of the Rebel are just better than Galilean. Now, spoke about an equipment change for a horse like Improbable. There's also an equipment change for Galilean. Galilean's going to come in here and take the blinkers off. Now, again, not a giant sample size, and also it's been a decent enough strike rate for hitting the board, but Jerry Hollendorf for past 5 years, blinkers switched to off, not first time blinkers off, blinkers switched to off in route races, 2 for 15, 9 times in the money with a 109 ROI. So it's not a great move, but it's not a disaster. The sample size is too small to really draw a major conclusion on it. There was a part of me that wonders, is he quite as good as those top two? Perhaps a minor reward again. I just have a hard time envisioning him taking the necessary step forward here to get the job done and turn the tables on those. So those are 3 coming out of that division of the Rebel. You've got another sort of group of horses coming out of the other division, but most notably this one, Omaha Beach. He is the 2-to-1 second choice in here, goes out for Richard Mandela. This is one of those things I love to see. Take a look. Now, look, this is a horse, again, I'll say early on, I thought he was just kind of didn't want to get the job done, say a little bit on the heartless side. But maybe I was being a little bit unkind because he did face some nice horses. Flying Scotsman's in here. Nolo Contesto, I still maintain, is a nice 3-year-old. And the other thing to keep in mind, those first 3 starts were all on grass, and he seems to have taken a step forward on the main track. Perhaps down the road he will go back to the turf. Who knows? But right now, he's just in too good a form, and he's running too well to consider anything otherwise. But the piece that I really like, take a look. In all 6 lifetime starts, he has taken a step forward on the Beyer scale. 62 to 78 to 80 to 83 to 90 to 96. I also love that they are not giant steps forward. They are incremental moves up, and I think that's the way that I like to see it. Sort of your little building blocks, as opposed to that one just smashing effort that's 25 points faster than anything you did. That's the kind of race that makes me a little bit leery about where did that come from. This sort of progression, especially for a trainer like Richard Mandela, I think is very, very positive and very, very good going forward. My concern with Omaha Beach, highest last out Beyer in the field with a 96, highest last out raw time form rating with a 119. Those numbers more or less match up as far as the sort of differential. I call it about a 20-point number. Tack 20 onto the 96 or take 20 away from the 119, give or take a few points there. My concern is the running style. Now, at this point, we're going to see him. We're going to take him as they're turning for home. You see that this horse, Omaha Beach, is on the lead. Game Winner on the outside is going to start making a move toward this horse, and he's going to actually threaten as they get closer to the wire. Now, what do you want to draw from that? Is it distance for Omaha Beach that ended up kind of getting to him at the end here? Was Game Winner just finally hitting his stride? You see it was the most desperate nose that you're ever going to see. But there's a part of me that does look at it and say, based on pedigree, this horse probably should want to run all day, Omaha Beach. I had said prior to the Rebel that I wondered if maybe he was a one-turn type, maybe a one-turn horse. Based on what he did in the Rebel, he deserves to take money in here. I'm not going to fault anyone that picks him and chooses him. The running style is the thing that concerns me because there are other horses in this race that figure to be forwardly placed. They can go right through. You see Tickvin Flew. I don't think he's going to be up there pushing the pace, but he's going to be a heck of a lot closer than he was in the Gotham. The only reason he was so far back is because they were just setting land speed records on the front end that day. You look at another horse like Gray Attempt, as good as I think he is, all 4 wins in gate-to-wire fashion, and in the gazebo going 6 furlongs, he walked on it on just the easiest. The pace is almost 46 for a half mile. Going 6 furlongs, it's going to be tough to run down a horse like that. I don't like him stretching out in distance, but I do think he can be a thorn in the side for a horse like Omaha Beach. Another horse that figures to be forwardly placed in here is One Flew South. Now, I don't think this horse can win a race like this. I don't think he's fast enough, but the blinkers go on. He showed speed in the career debut. He showed a little bit of speed in the Mind That Bird Derby. I mean, to be honest, the only way that he can win this race, in my opinion, is if you go. So I'd imagine he's going to be on a little bit of a mission. So this pace could could theoretically heat up for a horse like Omaha Beach. Perhaps that works against him, and perhaps that works to the advantage of a horse that has the ability to sit just off of it and come with a run. I'm not questioning his ability. I was wrong in saying that he was a little bit potentially on the heartless side. I still just want to see, as he continues on, what kind of horse do we have here, and does he have the ability to adapt? Does he have the versatility? If there are other horses that are just hell-bent on the lead, can he rate and relax kindly and then still be as effective? If you're looking for some other horses to use underneath, 6-suiter, I don't think he's fast enough to win a race like this. The distances as they get longer, I'm a little bit dubious there. He's by trap shot. Tick Vin Flu, again, I think he's going to be closer to the pace, but I just don't think he's quality enough. Laughing Fox, I picked him in the Rebel last time out. He just didn't really pick his feet up at any point. I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, you know what, I thought this run 2 starts back was solid enough. He's probably going to get a more advantageous pace situation. I want to use him underneath. I can understand anyone that says he's probably just not good enough, but I do want to give him the benefit and maybe give him one more shot to pick up some pieces. Already made my piece about Gray Attempt. Galilean Country House is a horse that we need to touch on because he was sort of the belle of the ball leading into the Louisiana Derby. If you wanted to go against War of Will, many people gravitated toward Country House. Well, Country House made this big, bold move rounding the far turn out in the clear, and he just flattened out down the lane. He couldn't sustain that big bid. I do wonder, boy, he still, to me, doesn't seem like a completed project. And I had said in the recap show, you can go back and listen to it following the Louisiana Derby. I would like to see this horse run one more time, and if he gets the points to go to the Derby, great. If he doesn't, start planning for a race like the Preakness. They have run him back here. He's going to run on Saturday. Whatever happens, I'm sure his next move, his next race following this will be dependent on what happens in the Arkansas Derby. But to me, he's still just a work in progress. I just still don't think he's put it all together. He did break more alertly in the Louisiana Derby, which is a positive. It's a step in the right direction. But he's still one that I want him to prove to me that he's put it all together before I go fully buying it. The 9, One Flew South, already said, don't think he's fast enough. Jersey Agenda, nice horse. I'd like to see him going shorter. I don't think that additional ground is going to be to his liking. I wonder if he's going to be more like his dad, Jersey Town, even with the Dynaformer on the bottom. And then we get the Long Range Toddy. So for me, this is a formful race. I think the pace is going to be a key. I think it's going to be interesting to see how a horse like Omaha Beach reacts and responds to it. But when it's all said and done, I'm going with Baffert. I just think Improbable is a very, very good horse. And I'm hopeful that the blinkers, maybe that's the thing that it'll take for him to just sort of put it all together, because he's another one you can make the argument he is yet to really run a complete race. I suppose that Los Al Futurity was the closest thing, but his career debut was very grindy. It didn't seem like he was really getting into high gear. That street sense, it wasn't the prettiest move early on, and then he just overpowered that field in that long stretch at Churchill. I wonder, maybe the blinkers going on is going to be the thing that makes the light bulb go on. I'd like to see him sit sort of a pocket trip, let the speeds go, eventually angle out and come with your bid. I'm going to go 111.35 in this year's Arkansas Derby. Remember, the top 2 finishers, they get into the Kentucky Derby. Many of these main players, they still need points in order to get in. Other horses that need some points, most notably another Twist of Fate. He's going to run in the Lexington. Let's take a look at that field right now down at Keeneland. On to Keeneland, race number 9, 1 1/16. It's the Lexington. This is for 3-year-olds. And there are Derby points on the line. This is a situation where you win, you're unlikely to get in unless you're a horse like another Twist of Fate. There's 20 points that go to the winner, and it's one of those things where if the best horse does what he's supposed to do, he's going to be in the starting gate for Saturday in May. Nothing to worry about. I've long maintained a race like the Lexington, I think, is a very, very important race, and one that's not utilized enough by some of these connections that have a sort of fringe contender. And the reason I say it's very important is because, yes, it's a gamble. You're going into this spot, you're only going to get 20, and you need to win the race. But my logic is if you can't win the Lexington, you really don't deserve to be in the Kentucky Derby. You're supposed to be going in there as the horse to beat, and that's what another Twist of Fate is in a spot like this. If he can't win this race on Saturday, I don't think he deserves to be in the starting gate. I think he will, and I think he's a really nice horse. The other thing that you can keep in mind is if he does not win this race, the connections already have sort of a built-in backup plan. He won the El Camino Real Derby 2 starts back. That offered an automatic bid into the Preakness. So this could be sort of the built-in sort of situation where, you know what, maybe he doesn't quite get there. Maybe he finishes a good second, but he's going to be ready to go for the Preakness in Baltimore in a handful of weeks. So you got a couple of things going on here, but really this race boils down to, do you like another twist of fate or do you want to try to beat him? As you can see based on my numbers, I think he's the horse to beat. I'm picking him in here. But there were a couple other intriguing candidates that I thought, you know what, maybe there's a scenario where you could go against him if you were so inclined. I brought up in the last race when we talked about the Arkansas Derby how Long Range Toddy prior to the Rebel had paired up career Beyer tops of 87, which preceded the move to a 95. You see this beautiful piece right here. These are a couple of paired up 94s for another twist of fate. To me, that signifies we're probably ready for a forward step. If he takes a step forward here, let's say he gets into the high 90, low 100 range, and he gets his points for the Kentucky Derby, all of a sudden he becomes, I don't even want to say all of a sudden, he's already a very, very interesting horse for the Kentucky Derby if he gets there. Let's go back and take a look at the run from Sunland Park. You're going to see right now he is out here in the pink silks. Okay, he's basically sitting in the pocket kind of trip. And it's going to take a little while for him to eventually extricate himself. He was in behind horses. The fractions are hot. We know that. We've seen that in the past at Sunland. He's eventually going to split horses and go on and come with a really nice bid. Cutting Humor's already got the jump on him, so I don't want to hold that against a horse like another twist of fate. And really the question was, he had never passed a horse in his life in a race that he had won. Now, that sort of statement stands. At this point, he has yet to win a race where he has not been outright on the lead. But I love the way that he's finishing. He's reaching out, finishing full of run. Cutting Humor, I think, is a nice horse as well. I think this could end up being a sneaky productive race. Those top two, I both think they're quality. It does. I mean, look, a fact is a fact. You see these 3 wins, all of them, Gates Wire fashion. This run right here at least gives me reason to believe that he can sit and come with a run. Now, he's no bargain at 2-1 on the morning line. I would expect him to be even shorter than that come post time. But I do think he is the horse to beat and the most likely winner of the Lexington. I'm going to pick another twist of fate in here. If you are so inclined to go against him, who is there for alternatives? Well, let's kind of work outside in, because one of the other tapes that we'll take a look at is from a race toward the outside. Royland is the 10. He's paired up career Beyer tops of 84. I want to use this horse underneath. My problem is he really, for the most part, I suppose I have written in at the top of the lane, turning for home in the Louisiana Derby. Got a little bit of a shuffle. Maybe, maybe I could go back and amend that. I just thought really when the running began down the lane, he was just sort of up and down. But those paired up Beyers, I think he can take a step forward. Is it enough to win this race? I don't really think so. I think he could get a minor award though, so he's the kind of horse I want to use underneath. The other tape we'll look at is Zendon's. Now, Zendon is a horse that leading into the Tampa Bay Derby, I didn't think he wanted to go 2 turns. He never changed leads here in the Swale 2 starts back down at Gulfstream. But boy, he goes out in the Tampa Bay Derby and sets a ballistic pace. And he earns the highest last out raw time form rating in the field with a 114. Now, if you think he's going to be able to get out there and relax on the front end and maybe things are going to be a little bit easier, perhaps he could be an interesting upset candidate. I just can't imagine a horse like another Twist of Fate letting Zendon go that easy, or in some of these other horses as well. We will take a look at that run in the Tampa Bay Derby, and this is a difficult one for me to analyze. You see Zendon right here. He's on the front right now in this white cap. You're going to see he is incredibly late to change leads. You're actually not even going to see him do it. He's going to be in between horses. You've got Outshine out here. Here comes Tacitus up the inside, and Win-Win-Win on the far outside. The thing that, for me, is making this race very difficult to analyze as a whole, those top 3 runners all came back. And now Outshine, you don't want to hold the Wood Memorial against him, given the circumstances, given how that whole thing, they were playing bumper cars out there. So his 39, I'm going to draw a line through that. That's really not an indicative effort. Tacitus and Win-Win-Win both ran credible races in their next start. Tacitus comes back, wins the Wood Memorial with a 97. Win-Win-Win stopped on the far turn, still rallies, finishes a good second in the Bluegrass with an 88 Beyer. The problem is, after that, Zendon finishes 4th. The other horses that have come back have not picked their feet up. So I think there is a scenario where good horses can perform reasonably well in a bad race. And I'm starting to wonder if that's the situation with the Tampa Bay Derby. I think it may be a bad race, but good horses can run relatively and reasonably well, even if they're not 100%. Tacitus, that was his first start as a 3-year-old. Win-Win-Win, that was his first time stretching out to 2 turns. And Outshine, who knows what he'll turn into, but don't hold the wood against him. My point is, Zendon might be a nice horse. I don't know that I love him at a distance like this, despite the fact that he ran as well as he did. I think he's going to be a shorter kind of horse. I think he's going to be a one-turn type. If he runs really well here, I'd try to wheel him back for the Pate Mile at a one-turn mile. If that race doesn't work, you have the Woody Stephens going forward. So the Tampa Bay Derby is an interesting kind of race to analyze and break down. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Leave the comments beneath the video player on YouTube or to me directly on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. As far as some of the other runners, Owendale. Remember back to when I did a preview of the Risen Star. You can go back and find that archived on video.drf.com or the Racing Forms YouTube channel. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can find those. I had said in this N1X, 2 starts back, he earns the 91 buyer. If you believe the 91 buyer, he was an interesting alternative to War of Will. I was fading him heavily because the Timeform US rating did not check out. He earned a raw 95, which was actually slower than his run 3 starts back, in which he finished second. So if you believe the buyer, he was a prime contender. If you believe the Timeform rating, he had no chance. Well, guess what? He didn't even replicate his Timeform rating. He clearly regressed from the buyer's standpoint. I think this 91 is phony. I don't think that's an accurate number. I think it's considerably slower than that. I don't like Owendale at all. If he wins, I'll tip my cap to Brad Cox and Florent Giroux and say, you know what, good on you. I like the connections, but I don't like this horse at all in here in a spot like this. I think that 91 is misleading. We move on and take a look at some of the other runners. K-Nix Go. I don't know what the hell happened to this horse, but boy, the wheels have fallen off in a major, major way. He ran so well in the Breeders' Cup. I've made it clear a number of times. I don't love that Breeders' Cup Juvenile as a whole. This race, the Kentucky Jockey Club, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt there, but the 2 subsequent starts have just been terrible. And I don't care that he's getting back to Keeneland. There's just, he would need to be 50-1 for me to have even remote interest. Right now, the form that he's in, I can't possibly suggest him or recommend him as a play in here. Chase the Ghost, in my opinion, too slow in a spot like this, but we saw Dallas Stewart last weekend pop at a big number in the Ashland. Harvey Wallbanger, I can understand folks that look at it and say, oh, he's running those races down in South Florida, he's faced good horses. I think he was the beneficiary of an absolute pace meltdown in the Holy Bull, and in the Florida Derby, sure, the pace may have been on the slow side, but he never really picked his feet up at any point. You can at least pass some other horses, pass some tiring horses. He didn't even do that. I don't like Harvey Wallbanger in a spot like this, even though he has every right to move forward second start off of the bench. Number 4 is another twist of fate. We've already spoken about him. Sueño is a nice horse, a talented horse, has a little bit of versatility, a little bit of tactical ability. He can get into the run early if the pace is moderate. I like the fact that his Louisiana Derby, sure, he had a perfect trip. Would I have liked to have seen him finish a little bit on the better side? Yes. But perhaps a 1 1/8 is pushing it for him. The run 2 starts back. I thought this was very, very positive. This Southwest, he goes out there, he sits a nice trip, comes on, finishes really nicely. You see Super Steed, when he wins the race, people are immediately saying, oof, how good could it have been? He was 1,000,000-1. Well, Long Range Toddy finished behind Sueño, and all he did was come back and win. And I know Long Range Toddy had a troubled trip that day, but he's at least made the form of that race stand up a little bit better. I think Sueño is a legitimate player. Wouldn't talk anybody off of him. The 2-horse Hawaiian Noise is kind of an X factor in here for Wesley Ward. Johnny V's got the mount, stretching out to 2 turns for the first time, getting back to dirt for the first time since last October. The good news is that dirt race was here at Keeneland. It came from off the pace, so you think there is some versatility. But boy, based on these fractions right here, color-coded red from Timeform, forwardly placed in this race at Turfway Park, first start off the bench, I'd imagine stretching out, second start off the bench, I think he's going to be forwardly placed. And again, maybe that just kind of works against horses that project to be forward. First time going 2 turns, I want to see one. He's also more bred for the grass and the synth than he is for the main track. But he goes out for a quality horseman, quality connections. He's one, I suppose, if you want to get brave, you can take a shot with him at a decent number. And we'll wrap things up with the horse that I'm most intrigued with outside of another twist of fate in this race specifically. That's Shang. Shang is a Louisiana bred for Steve Asmussen. The run 2 starts back at Delta Downs. Keep in mind, Delta Downs, bull ring, so a little bit of an odd configuration, but it was 2 turns. Never changed leads. I hated that, but boy, I love that he went and ran down the horse that was clear with about 1/8 of a mile to go. He really dug in and went and got him. He comes back in the Crescent City Derby, in the most recent start at the Fairgrounds. This was on the Louisiana Derby undercard, and he sat off of a tepid pace, and he went out there and absolutely put the boots to the field. Now, from a Timeform standpoint, that last race, not going to get it done. Going to need to get closer and revert back to something closer to this run back at Delta Downs. The buyers would suggest otherwise. I'm leaning more toward the time form numbers, but I do think there's a scenario where he sits a nice trip in here, maybe 3 or 4 lengths off of it. And if this visually was any sort of indication of what this horse could potentially be, I do think he's interesting at 10 to 1 on the morning line. I don't know if he stays at 10 to 1, but I do think he's intriguing. So where did I go? I'm going with another twist of fate. I just think he's the best horse in here. I think he gets through this and is an interesting candidate in the Kentucky Derby. I want to use Shang underneath. I do think he's an intriguing runner in this spot at what should be a very fair number. I don't think he's going to be one of the favorites. And if you want to use a horse like Royland underneath, I think he's intriguing. Swainyo, again, I've already talked about it. He makes all the sense in the world. So we'll find out. All eyes will be on another twist of fate. I think he passes this test, and I think he punches his ticket to the Kentucky Derby. We will find out otherwise if something sort of bizarre happens. But at the end of the day, you do know he's going to be the favorite in here. If you like him, maybe you want to put all your eggs into his basket. If you don't like him, you have an opportunity here with some value. There you have it. It is all wrapped up. After those 2 races are done, the Derby qualifying season, the Derby prep season, will be concluded for 2019. We will know who the 20 starters, or scheduled starters anyway, for the first Saturday in May, the Kentucky Derby, are after this weekend's races are run. I will recap both of these races as well as a number of other races in the recap show that will be coming at the beginning of next week. Normally it's uploaded and recorded on Monday. I had to tweak my schedule a little bit this week, so it'll be coming up on Tuesday. I'll go over those races and then some other ones. Thank you for listening and watching this. If you listen or you watch, you've got YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. Wherever you listen to it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It's always greatly appreciated. Questions, comments, concerns, all that kind of stuff beneath the video player on YouTube or directly to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. There's going to be a number of great races coming up this weekend all over the place, so you're going to want to be locked into DRFTV. We've got all sorts of previews for you to go through and check out. You've got breeding report. You've got all sorts of great stuff. Again, video.drf.com or the Racing Forms YouTube channel. It is Masters weekend. As I'm recording this, first round's underway. Tiger's just making the turn right now. All is well. Saturday is moving day at the Masters. It's the 3rd round. Guess what? It's also moving day as far as the Derby point standings are concerned. We'll find out who shakes down and who end up in a pretty good spot here come the beginning of next week. So good luck this weekend. However you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. I'll be back on Tuesday with the recap edition. Until then, this has been the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show.